It's a beautiful Monday morning, the very first official working day of the week. The 28th day in the month of June 2021, and it's with great pleasure we welcome you to yet another wonderful edition of the Parliament. For you who is joining us for the very first time, the Parliament is our political flagship program where serious issues bothering the nation and the Southeast in particular are brought to the table and extensively debated. Nigeria's unemployment rate has more than quadrupled over the last 5 years as the economy went through two recessions. And according to a recent report published by the National Bureau of Statistics, unemployment rate in Nigeria has risen to 33.3% in the year 2021, becoming the second highest on the global list. Amid other problems that has rocked the nation, in the southeast, with insecurity currently topping the chart, unemployment seems to be the common denominator and the unseen trigger. So today, we'll take a look at solving the unemployment equation in Nigeria and the southeast. You're tuned into Urban Radio 94.5 FM Enugu. This is the Parliament. My name is Favor Eko Ibe.
All right, I'm Uche Gabriel, and welcome to the Parliament. To talk endlessly about insecurity, insurgents, hardship, and not talk about what causes it is like treating the symptoms and not really tackling what generates it. And after proper diagnosis of the problems bedeviling the nation, it is clear it will get worse if something creative, something innovative is not done and urgently to the issue of unemployment. Joining us this morning to discuss this is someone who has the exposure to see how it has been done in other climes, who has experience because he has been in business for over 2 decades and counting. Tony Odukwe, so good to have you on a Monday like this.
Always a pleasure to be here, Uche.
All right, Uche Gabriel is my name.
Yes, glad to have you once again to lay the foundation for this very conversation. Would like to understand whose responsibility it is exactly to create jobs. Is it the government or the private sector?
Basically, it's everybody's job. Okay, solving the unemployment equation should be a public-private partnership project. Okay, because government has a major role to play. But the private sector as well has a role to play. But the problem is that we are all resting on our oars, and the private sector is slacking because the government is sleeping, right? We need to lay a little background and kind of follow the history to understand how we got here. Before the discovery of petroleum, crude oil in Nigeria was doing well agriculturally, Agriculture is very important to any economy, to any nation, because you have to feed your population, but most important for populations that are large, right? And so we were doing very well, and that's why I hear people talking about the groundnut pyramids all the time, talking about the palm oil coming from the southeast and universities. There's an old man, a veteran politician that comes here all the time. I've forgotten his name.
Just go on.
Yeah, well, he talks about it all the time, how universities were built, from resources, gotten from agriculture. But you see, there's something we call the resource course, and you find that in most countries that have natural resources that are really, really financially, profitable, and you find that in Venezuela, you find that in South Africa, you find that in DRC, you find that in Nigeria. So all of these countries that have either diamond or petroleum turn out not doing well, because what happens is that the politicians get lazy, right? And so that's exactly what happened to Nigeria. With the discovery of petroleum, we all gave up on agriculture. We gave up on all of the resources that we had and still have and stopped exploring them. We started getting the easy money. Okay. And so that easy money made our politicians and policymakers lazy. And so everybody gave up on other sectors that should have, created jobs for our people. And that's basically how we got here. Now, the other thing is, last time I was here, we talked about the HDI, the Human Development Index. Nigeria is ranking very low. That means that with all our universities, we're still not able to bring out real professionals. And so if we lack professionals, we lack decision makers. We lack people we lack people who know how to run nations, how to run states, how to, develop, a country. Okay. And so basically that's what we are suffering from: policies, bad policies. So every money that Nigeria has made in the last 60 years came from one sector, and that is from petroleum. And so we left agriculture out. We left the solid minerals out. We left every other sector out. And so to solve that problem, there are a number of things we must do, but we will get there. But to answer your question, it is a partnership that must come between the government and the private sector, because what moves the economy forward is the SME sector, that is the small and medium scale enterprises. In any economy anywhere in the world, that sector is the one that drives the economy. And so if government does not give that sector an enabling environment to be able to thrive, they won't be able to employ people. If you help them thrive, they'll employ labor, because they employ the most labor anywhere in the world.
All right, she's definitely going to get to that SME part, but
Yeah.
even in the family, everybody's job never gets done.
Yeah.
Everybody's job never gets done by anybody.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say it's everybody's job, it becomes a little bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
So let's put it in perspective. What is really the job of a government, and what is the job of a private sector?
Great.
So that we can share the olu.
Yes. Great question. So basically, government, like I said, has to create enabling environment for businesses to thrive, right? So in the area of policies, that's the job of the government first, to, create great policies that move economies forward, right? Nigeria is suffering from bad policies, and that's as a result of people in government not supporting. People in government shouldn't be there. A lot of people that are in leadership positions in Nigeria should not be there for any reason, because they're just not qualified for the job. I've heard somebody say that, to become a medical doctor, you have to go through school 8 years. Right? To become an engineer, you have to go through school 6-7 years. Right? All of these professions require for people to go through school, and after you've gone through school, acquire experience that helps you excel in that area. But then in politics, everybody gets up and goes into politics. A tout who we know on the streets doing, toutish stuff, all of a sudden, because he has a godfather, becomes a local government chairman. He doesn't even know how to write a proposal. He doesn't even know how to veto one, but all of a sudden he gets into a political position because he has a godfather. How do you expect him to do well? So you see, we must ensure that people who are qualified and have pedigree gets into government to be able to create these policies that we're talking about. Now, when we get that right, the next step will be for government to do a number of things: provide infrastructure. Number one, I have said this a million times and I will never stop saying it. The day Nigerian government wakes up and decides to provide 24-hour power, Nigeria will boom. The Nigerian economy will blow off the roof. That is a fact, because every other thing is tied to power. Okay? Industries are tied to power. Small MSMEs, medium small enterprises, MSMEs, however you might define that, needs power to operate. Okay, and so if you do not provide power, you can't even attract investment. So you see, you need foreign direct investment to be able to build industries, okay, that will create jobs. You also need local investors to go into industry setup, right? But if there's no power, it pushes people away. How much is it going to cost me to provide my own power? And so any investor will look at that overhead and say, oh no, it's not going to be profitable for me. And so they walk away. It takes only the bold in heart to actually make that move. A few people have made it in Nigeria, and because of the great nature of Nigeria profitability, they have made profit. But a lot of other people are scared away by that. So government has to provide 24-hour power. And once that is done, you will see the economy growing forward. I also always say that Obasanjo took the bull by the horn and provided the GSM technology. And that in itself drove growth in the Nigerian economy. So I expect that this government or successive governments would actually take the bull by the horn and provide 24-hour power. So restructuring, again, is restructuring the transportation system. It's infrastructure that is actually needed. For example, you have farmers in the rural areas, farming and providing food, but they are not able to transport their food to the urban areas where they can actually convert them to cash. It becomes a problem. And so somebody suffers 6 months to farm something and harvests it, and then the roads are bad, and they don't even have transportation to move that stuff. It actually discourages businesses. So policies, number one, infrastructure, number two. Then again, we must also government must also open up the agricultural sector. Because again, there are a number of things I'm going to talk about, but they're also tied to agriculture, food production, and power. Okay. Now, for example, there are a number of businesses that you can set up, but they also depend on farm produce. Okay. So government must ensure that Nigeria is producing enough food for the local populace to feed, but also enough for the processing industry to be able to process foods and export.
It sounds like a tall order.
It's not. But again, it's because of that problem of depending on oil. And I'm scared that because of our dependence on oil, Nigeria may actually not have GDP in the next 2, 3, 4 years. Okay, because petroleum is not going to be in vogue for the longest time. Electric cars are coming. Okay, and so if people begin to drive electric cars all over the world, petroleum will not be making any more money. And so what are we going to do then? So like they say in Igbo, Tata Bobo, we need to start now, okay, to invest heavily in agriculture, open up the sector. Let foreigners come and invest in mechanized agriculture in Nigeria. Let local investors invest in mechanized agriculture. Encourage them to do that because it's vital. You must feed the local population. Okay.
All right. Talking about policies.
Yes.
That are probably driven. What we have right now are policies that are probably driven by the quest for immediate IGR, but not ultimate economic development of the places. And that's why there are no tax holidays, because most governments are not seeing 10 years from now.
Exactly.
Okay, so you start a business, there's all manner of taxation put as a burden on these SMEs who are supposed to ignite the economy. So what do you say about that?
Again, it's as a result of lack of creativity. Okay, government officials are just not creative. The last time we were here, we talked about government officials thinking that the only way to grow IGR is by taxing the local populace, and just taxing them. You're not providing infrastructure, but you're taxing them. And I said that any government that is taking taxes and not providing infrastructure is a thieving government, is robbing the people. Because the only justification for any government whatsoever to take taxes is that you're actually providing an environment for those businesses to thrive. Now, if I sourced my capital from a bank and you did not play a part in that, and then I went through the stress of setting up my company or industry, you did not play a part in that. And then I employed labor, and you have not encouraged me to employ labor. So everything I have done on my own, and you turn around and take taxes. On what basis am I paying you taxes? Okay, you're saying I have to pay taxes because it's part of the Constitution. But it's also part of the Constitution that the only justification for you to take taxes is for you to provide infrastructure and enabling environment for me to thrive and encourage me to employ more labor. Okay, but what you find in Nigeria is that governments are actually targeting GDP, IGR growth just by stealing from businesses. But let me tell you, if you're a government official, it's simple. It's not rocket science. Okay, all you need to do to encourage these businesses is number one, give them good roads. Make sure that there are enough road networks in the communities. Okay, make sure that find a constitutional way, for example, in the southeast to provide 24-hour power. Right? Make sure that there is enough transportation, and make sure that businesses have access to funding. Make sure that there are loans available for businesses to thrive. And so if you have done these things, these businesses will not be under pressure all the time. You can actually begin to see prosperous businesses that are making profit. And as they make profit, they scale their businesses and grow their capacity to employ more labor. It's that simple.
And then IGR is increased.
Increased, because what happens, listen, you talked about tax holidays. Now, wise governments would also provide tax holidays in certain areas of investment to encourage people to go into that area. But government, they are thinking if you provide tax holidays, oh, we're going to be losing that revenue. No, you're not. Because what you're doing is if you provide tax holidays, the money he would have used in paying taxes, he will use to scale his business and employ more people. And then you get employment taxes from the staff of those companies. And so if you enable him, one business to employ 100 people and the other 200 and the other 50 and the other 30, at the end of the day, these companies may not be paying taxes, but their staff will be paying, what we call employment taxes, on their salaries. And so government is good for that. Okay, so we need government to become more creative in driving, business growth. Now, I was talking about, government opening up agriculture. Why government needs to open up the agricultural subsector is that the farmers are able to produce enough food, not just for the local populace to eat, but for the processing industry. All right. And so that processing industry in itself is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Okay. The other thing government needs to do to encourage these businesses is to make sure that as you encourage these processing industries to set up, then you ban the importation of certain commodities. For example, if you open up the sector that processes meat, and Nigerians acquire the technology that allows them to produce canned beef, canned mutton, canned chicken, and all of that. What you're going to do to help them grow is to ensure that nobody imports the things that we can produce in the country. And so that means the local populace begins to patronize these businesses and they begin to do well.
All right. You said a lot about education in your previous analysis. And
Yes.
at this point in time, I want to know from your own personal assessment, what exactly, which is more prevalent? Is it unemployment or is it unemployability? Is it that there are no jobs or people who are of employable age are not employable? Which is the more prevalent one?
Okay, it's actually sector dependent. There are sectors where you have jobs available, but you don't have qualified people to take those jobs. Okay, in the in the oil sector, there are jobs that are available. I know that a couple of years ago, oil companies were needing underwater welders, and they didn't have them because. Does their suit provide underwater welding courses? Tell me any school that that provides that. So there are certain, specialized, skills that certain, industries need in Nigeria and don't have qualified people to take those jobs. And so that becomes a problem. And but on the other hand, unemployment is high because it's a function of how well the economy is doing. How does economies do well? Economies do well because economies that do well are mostly industrialized economies, companies that have enough manufacturing, industries that employ labor, right? So government benefits from that a number of ways. One, through taxes paid by the employees of these companies and taxes paid by these companies, government grows IGR. On the other hand, these companies export these commodities and earn forex and repatriate their forex, and government is good for that, right? So unemployment and unemployability, both are problems that Nigeria, have today, and we must find a creative way to solve it. And I'm saying it is solvable.
It's solvable.
It is solvable, yes.
So how much of a contributing factor is the educational sector to this issue?
It's great. It's huge. It's huge because you see, when people are educated properly, they're enabled to target certain problems in society and solve them. And making money is a function of solving problems. So when people are properly educated, they are incapacitated to solve problems. And as they begin to solve problems in their societies, it's a barter. Business is a barter, right? I solve your problem and then you give me money. And so that's why people don't understand really the process of making money. That's why a lot of people are chasing money, and they're not making money, right? There are a number of ways that you're able to make money consistently. One is that you give yourself the capacity to solve problems. Number two is that you're able to develop a product that you can exchange for money.
By giving yourself the capacity to solve problems, what do you mean?
By that I mean that, for example, if asphalt is somebody's invention, asphalt that you use to tar the roads, right? But do you know that somebody in Ghana has discovered a way to use both plastic and another material recycled from stuff thrown in the dirt bin to actually tar roads and make pavement and all of that. That's an invention. And so government of Ghana is looking into how to help that young man scale that technology because it's cheaper. So you can imagine that young man has discovered a solution to a problem, a cheaper solution to a problem. And so when he begins to get paid for that solution, what does he get? Profitability. He excels in his area of business. So people must be able to, in themselves, try to solve problems. Okay, Nigerians are not doing that. Everybody wants to open a boutique. Everybody wants to open a fuel station. Everybody wants to open. Tachosa is doing well. I'm sorry to mention that. I want to open a restaurant because this person is doing well. People are not being creative, and that's because our educational systems are not teaching people creativity. Now, when I traveled overseas 20 years ago, I first traveled to a country that spoke Portuguese. I didn't speak Portuguese, right? And so I couldn't get a job. But I needed to pay my rent because you had to pay on the 5th of every month. And it's not like in Nigeria. If you don't pay, you're out on the street. You have a contract, right? So that was when I actually discovered that saying, what that means. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Okay.
So because I knew I had to pay rent, I had bills to pay, and I couldn't get a job because I couldn't speak the language yet, I started thinking of ways to create things, and I started producing things that hadn't been done before. I started inventing things myself. And so these inventions caught the eyes of some people, and they started paying me money for that. And you see, I started making money, right? But that's because I have always been a creative person, curious person. I always want to make stuff with my hands, right? So people must be thought of, on how to create things. Look at problems in the society and ask yourself, how can I solve these problems? Begin to research, begin to look at what other people have done, and if you're able to come up with a solution, money follows you. That's number one. Number two, if you go to school, you learn mathematical equations. I said this last time I was here. You learn mathematical equations. You learn principles that every time you apply them, you arrive at a certain result that somebody in America arrived at. So you see the importance of education in solving problems and making wealth.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, that brings me to my next question. There seems to be an overemphasis on certificate.
Yes.
And what is generally acceptable around here is that you have to be certificated to stand a chance to be employed. What then happens to the artisans who, though they did not attend formal schooling, provide real value?
We have condemned them to poverty. And they too have given up. Because in the Nigerian system, we have said that only those who can do well, ever do well and amount to anything are people who have certificates. And so nobody cares about the artisan on the street, though he is an exceptional expert in his field. But you don't want to give him a job because he doesn't have a certificate. And Nigeria is failing because of that. There are a lot of artisans on the street who are great professionals, much better than the people who have acquired university degrees. And then we're not giving them a chance. And they too have given up. Some of them, have eventually died as a result of hunger or one kind of sickness or the other, or depression. Other ones have gone into criminality. The Nigerian government is to blame for that. Because you also understand that people who hold HNDs are discriminated in the employment sector in Nigeria. People always prefer the BScs over the HNDs, let alone people who don't even have any certificate at all. But you see, it's because of something that happened in the probably generation of our fathers, where I said it before, where people get out of school and then there's a car waiting, and there's a house waiting, right? And so every Nigerian at that time perceived, my brother, if you actually get a degree, that ensures that you're going to live a good life. And so everybody wanted to get a degree, right? And so their generation actually did well, studied and became professionals, right? But the generations after that began to chase those certificates without actually acquiring the skills that make you a professional.
Okay.
And so that's why you find that this sex for marks has become absolutely prevalent in Nigerian universities. And young men and young girls are also joining cult groups and sorting out lecturers with money to get the certificate and not the skill. So you're going through university 4, 5, 6 years, depending on the course of study, okay? And what you have in your mind is the high CGPA and the certificate. I'm going to graduate and I'm going to do my NYSC and I'm going to have both certificates. But the problem is that people study to pass exams. So some people, what they do is exam period, they begin to cram to pass those exams. Some people pay other people to take these exams for them. Nobody wants to actually acquire the skills that make you an engineer that you're studying. You know, nobody wants to become a real professional, acquire the skills through the university. And so the function of university had become to acquire certificates, because that's what's going to change my life. And that's why we churn out millions of graduates who know next to nothing. And they come out roaming the streets looking for jobs. There are two problems with that. Number one is that there are no jobs to be given anywhere. The jobs are not available. So we must rethink this idea of going to school to get certificates. Number two, if you get a job opportunity, you have to go through an interview. Are you going to be able to convince the guy going to give you the job that you know the job? Because you don't know it, right? And so you ask them, the job, just give me the job. What are you going to do for me? Are you going to make me profit? And I say that if you go to countries like Germany, where I've done business, you see, it's a skill-based, a lot of European countries are skill-based economies. They don't care about your certificate. Those are good, right? But the employer is looking for profitability and productivity.
How come those who brought, this certificate thing to Africa
are doing much better
have moved forward, and then someone is looked down on as a mechanic?
Yeah.
And then the mechanic engineer has to take his car to a quack or roadside mechanic to fix it. It doesn't add up.
No, it doesn't. Now, you see, for your first question was how come the people who brought us this educational system are doing differently from what we're doing. Number one, you need to understand that the educational system they brought us was a fake. It wasn't supposed to empower us. Okay, they give us
originally.
Yes, originally, because the point is, you find out that a lot of the mathematical principles being practiced in Europe and America are being practiced here. The mathematical principles that are being taught kids in kindergarten that helps you to arrive at the result easily. Go check it out. We don't have those here, right? So I believe that education the white man brought us was, first of all, to be able to communicate with them and be able to serve them.
But it should do more.
What?
Education should do more.
Yeah, it should be much better. So on that hand, they give us education to make us, minimally literate, to be able to serve them and do the duties at the time, because at the time they were our colonial masters. Okay, and as well, that education wasn't really supposed to liberate us mentally. It was education that was meant to subjugate us to the white man, to serve, the purpose of the white man, provide labor for their companies to do well. So when they left us, we did not do well in ourselves to advance ourselves and evolve.
We took what they gave us.
Exactly, and that's what we've been recycling since 1960 till now. I talked about last time marketing. People are studying marketing that were viable 40 years ago, but marketing is in digital marketing right now. Right? There are 6 months diplomas that you can do in the UK. 6 months diplomas. You can actually stay in Nigeria and get those diplomas. 6 months in digital marketing and multimedia. And people who have those certificates get jobs with Google, Yahoo, and some of these big tech companies. So it's not about the number of years you've spent studying. It's about the skill that you acquire, right? And so our people, the Ministry of Education and the Minister of Education must rethink education in Nigeria and actually begin to, bring back professionals who would help us, advance education, because actually education has evolved.
All right, so let's bring it back to the Southeast, since we're talking about and East as well. Where is the Southeast and the unemployment ratio in Nigeria? How well or horrible do you think we're doing?
Very horrible. We're doing badly. We're doing badly. Because why do I say we're doing badly? The Southeast is not attracting foreign direct investment. It's not. It's not even attracting local investment. Lagos is doing great, right? Some states in the Southeast, I would say one state in the Southeast is doing well, and that is Anambra State. Anambra State is doing well because of the productive nature of the people there, and so government doesn't have any choice but actually try to help those people. Nnewi is doing marvelously well. Somebody said if you go to Nnewi, they can actually make you, so
Equilobia is actually turning into something else now.
Okay, so that's great. Aba also is doing well, but again, in terms of investment, attracting investments to build industries, like I said, power is key. Right, I know there is a company, Baton, that did a project that's supposed to help Abba scale power, and then lack of political will has impeded him for the last six years or so. So that's the other problem the Southeast has. We're not helping one another. So Southeast isn't doing so well because, one, it's not attracting investments, and so jobs are not being created. Okay, but it's solvable. It's really simple. It's not rocket science. Okay, there was something Fashola did in Lagos. Fashola was very smart, and I said then, I'm not really into politics and all of that, but I said if Fashola ever ran for presidency, that I was going to vote for him, because that guy changed Lagos. And you know what he did? It was a private-public partnership, right? He let people take certain sectors of the Lagos,
economy,
set up and run them. So you found out that he opened up the economy and allowed the private sector to become partners. And so you saw that the BRT projects that you see in Lagos was not funded by the Lagos state government. It was funded by banks. And so if you can do this route, we give you the contract, provide the buses, make your revenue, pay taxes back to government. It's a smart way to do those things. You don't necessarily have to do it with your own money. Even though that the allocations given to the Southeast is enough to have turned the Southeast to a Dubai. I say this and I continue to say the allocations are enough to turn the Southeast to a Dubai. But even if you don't want to use your own money, open up the economy, let the private sector come in, give tax holidays, encourage them to come, give them baits, that will encourage them to come. So they're going to come, people are going to come and invest in industries, invest in transportation, invest in manufacturing. It is quite simple. You can't create jobs if you do not create industries. And so if you give people baits, they're going to take those baits and they're going to come build industries. And as they build industries, they do well. But security is also pertinent. It's absolutely very important that governments find, sustainable ways to provide security. Because no matter how profitable a region seems, I'm not going to lose my life for that profit. Okay? And so that is one of the deterrents that, investors have. So if you provide sustainable security and provide power, these two in itself will change the Southeast forever. And I just don't know why our governments and